Hey YouTube, this is Everything Apple Pro, and I'm doing a comparison video between the iPod Touch 4, the iPod Touch 3rd Gen, and the 2nd Gen. Now I didn't include the 1st Gen because that's not fair, and it doesn't have iOS 4.1, which is basically why I didn't put it on here. Now basically the iPod Touch 4th Gen is a big step up for the iPod Touch. People describe it as the iPhone without a camera, and I would agree. It has two cameras, one front facing, of course the Retina display that matches the iPhone 4's. It's got FaceTime, it's got the A4 chip, multitasking, a lot of things that the older generations don't have, and it's really thin compared to the previous models. It's not a lot thinner, but I would say it is thinner by about, let's say, 20%. But it is kind of uncomfortable to hold in your hand because it's slipping out because of how thin it is. So the 3rd Gen actually and 2nd actually are way more comfortable to hold in your hand. Now these have all been restored to 4.1 firmware, so they're all clean. There's no apps, absolutely nothing, so it's an equal test. Alright, and before we get started, I wanted to point out a couple things about the iPod Touch 4. I forgot to mention it has a microphone, and these buttons right here are split up, so it makes it easier to press them. And the iPod Touch 4G has the new 1 gigahertz processor, while this one is around 600 megahertz, and this one about 800 something megahertz. And this one has 256 megabytes of RAM, 256, 128 megabytes. And that's just the hardware or technical specs that is a difference between these two. Although besides the resolution, yeah, that's a lot better. But yeah, so on with the video. Okay, the first test is going to be the startup test, and I'm going to try this as evenly as possible. Alright. 1, 2, 3. Alright, and I press the button at the exact same moment. Some of them boot up slower, some faster. Now, what's really cool about the iPod Touch 4 is what these guys don't have that I really, really like in an iPod or iPhone is that you can't get dust on the screen. That annoys me like nothing else. The glass is fused on this one, but it looks like the iPod Touch 4th Gen has just booted up first, and then the 3rd and the 2nd. Now, pretty much the iPod Touch beat them by, I'd say, about 5 seconds, 5-10 seconds. These two are pretty much even, 3rd and 2nd Gen. Alright, so for the next comparison, we're going to make sure we have no apps in the multitasking. And we're going to delete these, make it even. And we are going to try opening up some apps to see how fast the apps start up on all 3 devices. First one is going to be the App Store. There you go. Of course, it's like a wave. iPod Touch 4th Gen first, then the 3rd Gen, and then the 2nd Gen. Now we are going to try iTunes. Yep, same thing again. 4th Gen wins, and 3rd Gen and then 2nd Gen. Although 4th Gen and 3rd Gen are on par, they're not really far away from each other. 3rd Gen is surprisingly very fast. Alright, the third test is going to be a Safari test, and all iPods are connected to the same network. We're going to go to engadget.com. Now I'm going to do this as evenly as possible, and here we go. Surprisingly, the iPod Touch 3rd Gen has a lead, although the iPod Touch 4th Gen isn't far behind, and it just beat it. And there are no tabs open on this. This is even. All caches have been cleaned. And iPod Touch 4th Gen has beat the 3rd Gen by a few seconds. And the iPod Touch 2nd Gen is really still far behind. Alright, we don't have to wait for that. Let's just go back to the home. And the last thing I want to talk about is the battery life. The iPod Touch 4th Gen surprisingly, I don't even know how they did it. This thin frame supports an even better battery life than all of these iPods. 40 hours for music or audio, 7 hours for video for the 4th gen. For the 3rd gen, it's 30 hours of audio and 6 hours of video. And for the 2nd gen, it's 36 hours of audio and 6 hours of video. And yeah, battery life is amazing on this thing. It'll last you a few days like it lasts me. I use it a lot. And if you're wondering whether it's worth buying an iPod Touch for 4th gen, if you have anything else, if you have a 3rd gen, the only reason you would really want to update is because of the camera, or I don't even know. There's really nothing else that this can do that can't. If you like the thin design or the 2 cameras, it's a little bit faster. Nothing that I would upgrade the iPod Touch 3rd gen to the 4th gen over. And if you have an iPod Touch 2G, yeah, you should upgrade if you're looking for an upgrade and if you want something really fast. If not, it's cool. You could just stay with your old iPod. It's alright. So that's basically it, you guys. That's my comparison between these 3 iPod Touches, and I hope you liked it. Please rate, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more cool videos. And thanks a lot.